Welcome to the latest episode of our podcast series for financial advisors. Today's episode is Attracting, Advising, and Advancing Women, a guide for forward-thinking firms. It's a conversation with Cary Carbonaro, Managing Wealth Advisor and Women in Wealth Ambassador at Ashton Thomas. I'm Mindy Diamond, and this is the Diamond Podcast for financial advisors. At Diamond Consultants, we help elite advisors identify the right environment for their businesses to thrive, whether that's at a wirehouse, boutique, or independent firm. With nearly 3 decades of experience, we've guided thousands of advisors and represented more than $250 billion in assets transitioned. And each year, 1 in 4 advisors managing $1 billion or more who change firms are our clients. Our process is education-driven and based on building relationships, starting as your strategic partner well before you're even thinking of a move. To schedule a confidential conversation, call us at 908-879-1002. Wondering why advisors change firms and where they're headed? Are transition deals going up or down? Those very questions and more inspired us to create our annual Advisor Transition Report. It's the award-winning, data-driven resource designed for advisors that connects the dots between the motivations around movement and the firm's appetite for top talent. Arm yourself with the knowledge you need to make smart decisions. Download your copy at diamond-consultants.com/transition report. In our world, most firms are focused on growth, but too often they're missing one of the biggest and most overlooked opportunities: women. That includes women as clients who are set to control 2/3 of all wealth over the next decade. And it includes women as advisors who remain dramatically underrepresented in the industry. Cary Carbonaro has made it her mission to positively impact the world of women when it comes to advice and representation in the wealth management world. Cary's extensive career includes leadership roles at ACM Wealth, Goldman Sachs, where she was vice president and head of office, and United Capital Advisors, where she founded and led the Women's Leadership Division. Today, with a client base that's more than 75% women, Cary has built a $300 million advisory business at Ashton Thomas, focusing on empathy, education, and empowerment. She's also been an outspoken advocate as the Women in Wealth Ambassador for the firm and in the media, advising on how to support women in wealth and how to move from recruiting slogans to real change. In this episode, we talk about Cary's personal journey from the wirehouse world to independence, why so many firms struggle to recruit and support women advisors, how to build a practice that attracts and retains women clients, what advisors often get wrong about selling to women and how to fix it, and how authenticity and advocacy can drive both purpose and growth. I'm super excited to have Cary on the show. Her success story is one that resonates with me on many levels, and her mission is one we can all get behind. So whether you're an advisor looking to grow or a leader looking to build a more inclusive and future-ready firm, this conversation offers a candid, practical look at what really works. So let's get to it. Cary, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really looking forward to a spirited conversation.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure. All right, let's jump in. A lot to talk about. So let's start at the beginning, where we always do. Just share with us briefly a little bit about what drew you into wealth management and just a little bit about your professional journey.
Sure. My dad was a money guy, worked his whole career for JP Morgan Chase. And my growing up was socialized around money. I was taught money stories. We went to, instead of bonding around sports, we went to events like foreclosure auctions and straight talk with the Dolans. And he taught me everything about money at a really young age. And I just thought it was normal that everybody learned about this. And I didn't realize till college that nobody knows anything about money, and women worse than men about literally knowing nothing. And so when I was in college, I used to do people's budgets and I just did it for fun because I'm like, this is the greatest thing in the world. Like, I know about money and nobody else does. And so that's how I started. That's got my love into the profession. And then I was like, oh my God, I could do this. People will pay me to do this. I could actually make a living from this. And that's how it started.
Oh my God, that's such a great story. And I guess I have to wonder, so when you were a little girl and your father talked money to you, you see with hindsight and perspective how valuable those skills were, but did you appreciate it or find it boring when you were a kid?
Oh no, I never found it boring. I found it interesting from the minute he always talked about it.
I mean, you were excited to be with him. That's awesome.
Yeah,
To bond with him.
it was amazing.
Oh, that's so cool. Okay, that's a great story, and I thank you for sharing that. So, let's give our listeners some perspective about the business you've built now. So, a little bit about the types of clients you serve, the size of those clients, and the work you do for them.
Sure. So my practice is a little bit unique because it's 75% female, which is quite rare in this profession as a fee only financial advisor. What's also rare is the size and type of my female clients. My average female client makes $1 million a year. And when I say that, guys fall out of their chairs and they're like, I didn't know women make $1 million a year.
Ooh.
And so I think that's funny to
Yeah.
me at least. And then the 25% of couples that I work with, in almost every case, the woman is the primary breadwinner. I have two cases where it's not, but that is my primary. So I have a pretty much backwards profession of what everybody else has because everybody is usually 80% men, 20% women. So
Yeah.
my size of my practice is almost 300 million, just me. And so that is also quite rare for somebody to have as my size, a large size with such like not a ton of staff. And according to Michael Kitches, I should have a staff of, I think he said 9 or 10, and I
Yeah.
have a staff of one, maybe one and a half. So it runs quite well.
You're right about that because what you're running is a lean and profitable practice, which we'll talk about as we continue through the conversation. But it's so interesting to me because, first of all, that male comment around, I can't believe your clients make $1 million a year. Oh, that hurts. But second of all, what an awesome and admirable service you offer. I have a friend of mine who is 55 years old and just became a widow, unfortunately, and was completely ill prepared. She never paid a bill. She never had any idea where their money was, anything. Her husband died suddenly, and she's left with picking up the pieces. And it took months and months. I actually connected her to a financial advisor who specializes in widows, a female financial advisor. But that financial advisor runs a much smaller practice than you do. And it was hard to find that person. So I think you're doing something really wonderful because women want to work with women and men often want to work with women because I'll ask this as a question rather than a statement. From where I sit, it's oftentimes that women are more relationship oriented and have better attention to detail than their male counterparts. Do you find that your male clients appreciate that in you and come to you because of that?
Well, it's interesting. I believe my male clients who are the primary breadwinners, which is not a lot because that's not my marketplace, but they did come to me. And I believe that they came to me because of who I am as a person, what I stand for, and also in case something happens to them, I will be there for their wives.
Mm.
And I've been told that many times in my career.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's great. All right, let's talk a little more about your background, your professional background, that is. So you were at JP Morgan, you were at Citibank, you were United Capital, which is the RIA that was ultimately bought by Goldman Sachs. So then spent a little time at Goldman Sachs, and then ACM Wealth before landing at your current firm, Ashton Thomas. So a couple of questions about that. One, tell us a little bit about your current firm, Ashton Thomas. Where is it based? How big is it? What is its value proposition? And then I want to hear a little more about what made you move from one firm to the other.
Sure, we could spend the whole rest of the time on this subject. But so I would say, let's talk about Ashton Thomas. So when I was looking for a firm, really all I wanted was what I had at United Capital. And I was trying to get that back. So I wanted a large national RIA with a great CEO, which is growing and has offices all over the country and has an open architecture platform. That's what I was looking for. I was looking to go to what United Capital was 15 years ago. So Ashton Thomas was the closest thing I thought I found, or I still think it's the closest thing to United Capital 15 years ago. They're based in Scottsdale, Arizona. They are PE backed by ARATs, which also owns other wealth management shops too. And they have a very strong leader in Aaron Grote, and they are nationally all over the country and growing pretty fast. They have about 10 billion and growing. And actually, I might be wrong. It might be 12 billion right now. I haven't even looked at the latest, but it's one of those where we're growing very fast.
Right. So let me ask you a question. Had you ever thought at any time about building your own firm? In other words, like joining Ashton Thomas, it sounds like what you got was plugging into a ready built infrastructure and size and scale and capital backing by private equity firm and the like, a strong CEO, all of it. But you weren't building your own brand. Was that ever on the table for you?
It's interesting. I already have my own brand, and they are not actually discouraging Cary Carbonaro and who I am and what I do and what I believe in. They're actually highlighting it and enhancing it. So for me, you got to remember, lean and mean, it's easier for me to plug into that infrastructure than hire 12 people and pay for everything out of my pocket rather than pay for a percentage. I ran the numbers every which way but loose, and I could not make it work with me doing it all myself. And I've been asked that question probably 1,000 times. Why wouldn't you just do it on your own? You could do it on your own. You don't need anybody else's help. Well, I do actually, because I do need help of all those. I do need all the staff. I do need all the infrastructure. I need all of that.
I respect that. I think that the most wonderful and exciting thing about the industry landscape today is that there's something for everyone. So the person who is highly entrepreneurial and only wants to do things on their own would never consider joining a firm like Ashton Thomas. Nothing against Ashton Thomas, but plugging into somebody else's brand or vision would never cut it for them. And then the vast majority of people don't want to build something from scratch. They want what you want. They want the scaffolding and support of a ready built firm. And they want to be able to just go do what they love to do best, to do what they find soulful. So I respect that answer completely. But tell us a little bit. Okay, so you started your career JP Morgan, traditional private bank, traditional large firm, and then found your and Citibank, and then found your way into the RIA space. So why the RIA world? What were you looking to solve for?
So I knew right from the beginning. So back in the day, I did JP Morgan Chase and Citibank. And then I actually had a stint running marketing, believe it or not, at Lord Abbett Mutual Funds, and which was in Manhattan and then moved to New Jersey. And so back in the day, I really saw firsthand what goes on with how you drop tickets. And like back in the day, this is really a long time ago, like when things were Wild West, really the Wild West. And so I knew, you know what, I don't see myself in that role. I see myself fiduciary fee only very early on. I think I was really pretty much ahead of my time because I started in 2002 fee only RIA, CFP. So I knew that's the way I wanted to go. And it was just because I felt like less conflicts of interest. I don't have to go the Series 7 way. I don't have to be regulated as much. I can talk to the press. I can do all these things that I want to do. I can go on TV. And I felt like the RIA world was a better fit for me and also let me be me more versus being in a box in the broker dealer world, which never ever fit at all for me, not even for a second.
I get that completely. But I guess the one drawback to the RIA space is that you never really have the opportunity to take some nice chips off the table, monetize the business by way of a significant transition, receiving a significant transition package when you move. How did you justify that?
I did become a partner at United Capital. So what happened was I started my own practice in 2002. And then this is like a big long story, but then I got divorced from 2008 to 2011. And so at that moment in time, I was actually under another RIA umbrella because of my divorce. And then in 2012, went to United Capital. So at United Capital, I did have a partial transaction, so to speak, taking some money off the table, where I sold 50% of cash flow to United Capital to become a partner. So that actually was a transaction in 2000. And actually, it didn't happen until 2014 because I wasn't ready in 2012 after going through a 4-year divorce. I said, I'm not ready for that. So I waited 2 years and then I did the transaction in 2014. So I was at United Capital from 2012 to 2019, and it was fabulous for me. It was absolutely everything I wanted it to be. I was completely leveraging my time and expertise with everything that they had to offer. I had a lot of roles there. I was head of women's leadership, which I started from scratch with another woman, writing a business case to Joe Duran about the future of women in wealth. And I got lots of money to do women's leadership there. I was the voice of the woman. So I used to do all the speaking and writing and TV and going around the country getting female clients for all the other offices. I was a FinLife coach and I had a diamond level practice there. So I did a lot of different roles and it was absolutely fantastic for me. It was great.
And did any of your clients ever, whether it be at United Capital or now at Ashton Thomas, anyone ever question the lack of brand recognition? Meaning, you're at JP Morgan, everybody knows what it is. You're at Citibank, everybody knows what it is. You go to Morgan Stanley Merrill Lynch, everybody knows what it is, and it's a firm synonymous with high net worth.
Not a chance. Because they are 100, Mindy, they are 100% in for me, not for the firm. And that's the way it's always been that way. So let's talk about the transitions, the iterations. So when I go on stage, which I do a lot this year because of the book, I have been telling everybody, and this people fall out of their chairs. I have moved my clients 4 times in 5 years with 100% retention.
Wow. So, okay, let's talk about that for a second. First of all, that's extraordinary. And I think what you're saying is the clients are in it for you, not necessarily the name of the firm on the door. And that's wonderful. And honestly, I've had the privilege now of interviewing hundreds and hundreds of very impressive podcast guests like yourself, and every one of them says the same thing. When advisors practice at a big firm, their number one worry is that their clients won't follow them because they're going to lose the brand identity of Morgan Stanley or UBS or whatever it may be. And when they leave that space, they realize the exact opposite. So you're corroborating that. But I do think that at the end of the day, a move 4 times in 5 years can sometimes, no matter how loyal or how much a client loves you, can result in what we call client fatigue. Never experienced that. None of them questioned it.
Oh, they questioned it, but I'm so open and honest about what happened and why that everybody understood. I tell my story. First, I was at United Capital and I would not have ever left. So that's first where I was. Then we got sold to Goldman, which I had absolutely nothing to do with. And there was no way I could get out of it. And believe me, I tried. I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to try to get out of my contract. I even tried to buy my business back and they reneged on me. So it was an absolute disaster. I talk about it in the book. I almost lost my career. I almost gave up. Luckily, I didn't. So then on the other side of that transaction of Goldman, I had to quit and run out my non-compete, which was also incredibly difficult. So I literally jumped off a net with nothing underneath me, like literally off a high wire, and had no idea what was going to happen. I really didn't. And I was just like, whatever, I have to believe in myself. I have to believe this is the right thing to do. And I'm doing it. So I quit Goldman. I ran out my non-compete and I wound up at the wrong firm on the other side. And that was unfortunate because at that moment in time, Mindy, and it's funny because it's what you do for a living, but everyone thought I was going to get a TRO. I was going to get sued. I was going into a lawsuit, a multi-million-dollar lawsuit with Goldman. I had the attorney saying that. Everybody was afraid of Goldman and nobody would touch me with a 10-foot pole. So I wound up in a bad contract with the wrong firm on the other side. And when I knew from before I even walked in the door, it was wrong. I tried to renegotiate. There was nothing I could do. They were absolutely unreasonable. And from the minute I walked in the door, I said, I'm leaving. And they said, you just got here. And I said, it doesn't matter. And I spent a year and a half looking for another firm and I found Ashton Thomas. So I knew the hardest was going to be going from from ACM to Ashton Thomas because I literally just moved. And I explained this whole entire story to everybody, every one of my clients. I explained the pros and cons of everything. And I said, or I can just retire. And nobody wanted that. And they said, oh no, we will go with you to the new firm. And that's what happened.
What I hear you saying and what resonates with me is your story is about authenticity. And clients can smell authenticity a mile away. They know when an advisor is moving for personal financial gain, and they know and appreciate when an advisor is moving for the right reasons for their benefit. And it sounds like that was the case. And that's exactly why your clients have been loyal and followed you. But I do want to ask you a question. So let's look at Goldman Sachs for a minute. So, for those not familiar, again, United Capital was a fabulous RIA, as Cary has alluded to, that sold to Goldman Sachs. And at first, the hope on the part of the advisors that worked for United Capital was that the Goldman name would really resonate with high net worth clients and allow them to take their business upstream. But what wound up happening for almost everyone was it was just a really poor, and I'm probably underselling, cultural fit, and it just didn't work. And so, but the Goldman name is a powerful one. So let me ask you a question from the perspective of the term open architecture. What does the open architecture RIA world allow you to do differently than you might have had, say, at Goldman Sachs, for example? And how has it impacted your ability to be active in media, write a book, which we're going to get to, et cetera?
Well, the first thing is an open architecture platform lets me have the world as my oyster. So my clients have choices of everything under the sun as far as investment choices, etc. So you would think that we would have all these incredible investment choices at when we went to Goldman, we never had anything opened up to us. The only thing we had opened up to us that I used was the direct indexing, Goldman Sachs direct indexing, which is quite good. I still even use it today, but any RIA can use it. It's not specific to being an employee at Goldman, therefore you get access to it. So we never got access to these things that you hear about or that you read about in the news, all these great things that are only for Goldman clients. We never had access to that. We only had our existing infrastructure from United Capital. So I never had all these additional options that everybody said we were going to get. And I don't know if it was, again, because I was in the have-not camp, because there was haves and have-nots at Goldman, and I was a have-not. That's what we were called, because I didn't participate in what they wanted me to participate in. And I didn't drink the Kool-Aid, and I didn't think that they were the greatest thing on the planet. It's very complicated. But anyway, I did not have access to it, and I don't think anybody did, but I definitely didn't, and my clients didn't either.
So you bring up an interesting point about that because a lot of times advisors only get access to the parts of the platform that a firm wants to turn on for them.
Right.
So even though Goldman is a powerful name and has 1,000 things at their fingertips and every resource possible, it doesn't necessarily mean that those resources were made available to you. So that's a great point. But talk to me a little bit about from the perspective of the ability to communicate freely, the ability to be a force in the media, to write a book. How does being an RIA or in the RIA space allow you to do that in a way that being in a traditional firm, Goldman or otherwise, wouldn't have?
Such a great question. So at Goldman, I had zero ability to speak, write, have an opinion, go on social media, go on TV, nothing. I was completely shut down. It was literally like having a gag around my mouth and having my arms and legs cut off because
Really?
my whole career was about me speaking my truth and talking about women in wealth and being an influencer and all of that stuff. And all of that was taken away from me. So what the whole time I was at Goldman, I didn't get any clients because I couldn't hold myself out as an
Mm,
advisor. It was so hard for me and it was so debilitating. And I called it soul crushing, and other people did
yeah.
too. But that was like the perfect word for me because I literally was so depressed that I could barely get out of bed in the morning because I did not know what to do with myself because I
So,
couldn't do what I did my entire life, my entire career.
yeah. The word that comes to mind there is the word congruence. I think that the thing that drives, so I'm a recruiter, so the things to me that drives movement when an advisor chooses to make a change, leave a firm, do something different, is a lack of congruence. That's what you're talking about. That you had a vision of being able to communicate and serve clients in a certain way. The firm you were forced to work for or went to work for disallowed that. And it is that lack of congruence or incongruence between what you wanted and what they allowed that forced you to find something different. And I do think that is one thing that really defines the RIA space. And the congruence is either go build your own, because then it's all about your own vision and make and executing on it, or find a firm like you did with Ashton Thomas, who has similar values and goals, allows you to execute the way you want to. And there is congruence between you, your goals, the way you want to serve clients, and theirs. Does that sound right to you?
100%. I feel like it's a culture fit too.
Yeah.
It's I don't congruence culture, it is similar, but the fact that I felt as they did not have a great reputation with women, they had a class action lawsuit going on for years and years. And I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm known as a women in wealth expert with a voice in this, like they could use me, like I could help them." And instead they were like, from the second I walked in the door, "You will sit down, shut up, and never speak again." And I was like, "What? What just happened?"
Yeah. Let's talk about that women in wealth designation. That sounds like you've had in a lot of different places, including now your title at Ashton Thomas is Women in Wealth Ambassador. Why does a firm need a women in wealth ambassador? And here's what I mean. They don't have a men in wealth ambassador. So what is that role about and why is it needed?
Well, it is needed because of the great wealth transfer that is just about upon us. We are 4.5 years away now. We're really close. By 2030, women are going to control two-thirds of the nation's wealth, which is $30 trillion, which is the same GDP as the United States. And if you go out even further to 2048, it is 57 trillion, according to Cerulli. These numbers are incredible. McKinsey came out with this study over a decade ago. So these numbers have been floating around in wealth management now for 10 years. And by the time we get there, it would be 15 years. And then the numbers just keep getting larger and larger. So Ruli came out in February of this year and said firms that get this right with women will be positioned for decades to come. So guess what? The future of wealth management is women. It's going to be women clients. It's going to be women advisors, hopefully. We're working on that. That's another whole problem. But the clients are going to be there. So, what worked in the past, your playbook that works for men does not necessarily work for women. And the reason that we know this is because of the stat of 70 to 90% of women leave when their spouse dies.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. In fact, in addition to being active in the media, you recently authored your second book. It's called Women in Wealth, the Playbook to Empower Clients and Unlock Their Future. So tell us a little bit. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's as an author myself, I know how daunting a challenge that is. And so just getting it done is amazing. But tell us about the premise of the book and why was this book one you needed to write now?
So it's so interesting when I look back, because everybody asked me that question. And both times in my life when I wrote books, I wrote them on the other side of terrible things happening in my life. So when I went through my terrible divorce in '08 to 11, on the other side of that, I came out of it and I had to write a book for women on building wealth. It was The Money Queen's Guide for Women Who Want to Build Wealth and Banish Fear. And it was like decades, what you do in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And I also wrote that as a cautionary tale because I told my story about what happened with me and my horrible ex. And anyway, that was book one. So this book, I came out on the other side of the Goldman fiasco and almost lost my career, almost lost my job, almost lost everything, almost walked away. And I said, oh no, I've got to get this out of my head. I've got to teach the industry how to work with women. We are so close to this great wealth transfer. There's no other book specifically like this. And it's time. It's ready. The timing is perfect. And I did.
What are the typical advisors doing? How are they getting it wrong when they're counseling women? Let me tell you my story, and maybe you can answer those questions, why women are different and what the average advisor is doing wrong when counseling women, just in the light of that. So, my husband and I had a pair of financial advisors that we liked a lot, that actually my parents had used as well. So, we were second generation clients and they were doing good work for us. I started this business 30 years ago. The business was really taking off. And let's say I was 10 years in. And so we're meeting with these financial advisors who, again, we liked and had respect for me. They were not denigrating. They had great respect for women. They said all the time how impressed they were with what I had built, etc. But at the end of the day, we were doing the year-end review, and I think I must have said something. My husband and I were together with them, and I must have said something along the lines of, "So, what's it gonna take for us to retire?" And the senior advisor on the team looked at me and said, I'll never forget this. He said, you just keep doing what you're doing, and you will have no problem walking across the finish line." So I finished the meeting. I gasped. I didn't say anything. Finished the meeting, however many minutes later, smiled, nodded, walked out, and I turned to my husband and said, "That's it. We're out of here." And he said, "What are you talking about? They're great guys. We've been with them forever." I said, "Anyone who knows me knows I've never walked across a finish line ever. I intend to finish my career and end the day by running across, by doing spectacular things. And anyone tells me that all I have to do between now and then is just keep the status quo doesn't really get me." And we went on a search for probably within 6 months later, we found new financial advisors that totally get us and get me. But with that story in mind, what does that story say to you, Cary? And then tell us how most are getting it wrong.
So that story says, first of all, they're not giving you numbers. Second of all, they're not addressing what you want and why you want it. They're not understanding the why behind what is making you tick. They're not looking at your behavioral finance. What is it? Why is it that it's doing that for you? Why did that turn you off so much? And that's it. They just didn't get you as a person and what makes you tick. That's what I think from that story. But that's quite common, actually, and they weren't even rude.
Not at all.
Right, and they weren't even rude. They probably didn't even think they did anything wrong.
100%. They had no idea we did anything wrong. And to be honest with you, I grappled with the question of when we laughed. Do I tell them? I did tell them, and I was really honest, and the reason I was is because of what I do for a living. I think so many clients opt to leave a financial advisor, and the financial advisor has no idea why. I felt I was giving them a gift by telling them that they turned me off by not asking me what was important to me and by really keying into what mattered most to me, and that by doing so, they lost a client and a client that got bigger over time and all of it. So you're 100% right. But is that typical? And is that something that only women want? Like, what's the secret sauce?
I don't know if it's something that, I mean, I'm sure some men want it too, but that's where in that case, specifically in that case, if they dug deeper and used the behavioral finance tools to understand the why of what makes you tick. So it's interesting because at United Capital, I think we were ahead of our time because we had a lot of behavioral finance tools and they're actually becoming incredibly popular today. And if you're not using them, you should be, and especially with your female clients, because you need to know what is making them tick and why. And the more questions you ask and the deeper your relationship goes with that person, the more they're going to be connected to you personally, professionally. They're never going to leave you. I'm the perfect example of 4 times in 5 years of my clients not leaving me because they know how much I care about them. And then I always go into that funny little thing that clients don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I'm like a big, huge fan of that. So that's how I practice. But let's talk about what makes women clients different, right? Because I get asked that all the time. And what drives me up a cliff is when somebody says they're exactly the same. Women and men are exactly the same. And I literally want to jump off a cliff because I'm like, I just wrote a 400-page book on the differences. So no, they're not exactly the same. Women, first and foremost, there's so many differences, and it doesn't mean that we're less than, it just means that we're different, period. And we also have a lot of strikes against us. Let's talk about the strikes. Pay wage gap. It's real, 82 cents on the dollar. Wealth gap, hugely real. And that is because women are out of the workforce, caregiving, having children, raising children, taking care of family members later on in life. If for some reason it falls on, in most cases, falls on the female. That whole thing costs women $1 million of net worth over their lifetime. That is a huge amount. So we got that. So we got pay wage gap, we got wealth gap, we've got out of workforce. So we retire with 2/3 less than men, usually because of those reasons, but also because sometimes we are not 100% invested, or we keep more money in cash, or we put others before ourselves. We spend more money in healthcare in retirement than men, at least $250,000. It's anywhere between $250 to $350, according to Fidelity, in retirement. We make less in Social Security. We're going to be by ourselves 90% of the time because we outlive our spouses. We have incredible longevity of an extra 7 to 10 years. So there's a lot of financial planning challenges before we even get into the differences of how we think and feel and all of that stuff. So I haven't even gotten into that, but that's just the tip of the iceberg with the differences of women and men.
I encourage everyone, every advisor listening, to get a copy of Cary's book. Cary, do you want to take a minute to give us a plug and tell us where they can get it?
So it's called Women in Wealth, a playbook to empower clients and unlock their fortune. It's published by Wiley. You can get it in Barnes & Noble. You can get it at Amazon. I'm sure it's at some small bookstores. I know a lot of people like independent bookstores, but because it's an industry book, it's not necessarily at every bookstore because it's got a specific audience for you guys. It's for financial advisors. But ironically, it's for financial advisors, and women who are lay people are also reading the book because a lot of the reviews are saying, this is what an advisor relationship should look like. These are the questions you should be asking your advisor. So it is getting a broader audience than I originally expected it to. And I also wrote it for male financial advisors. And also, female financial advisors are the main ones reading it, which is also interesting because I wrote it for men.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. There are so many, countless male and female CEOs of wealth management firms, large and small, that recognize what Cerulli said, that the great women in wealth transfer and the great migration of wealth, and recognize the importance of A, recruiting women financial advisors, and B, bringing on more women clients. So can you talk with us a little bit about, say, 4 or 5 of the most important best practices that someone who is looking to recruit more women advisors, what are some of the things that they could or should put into action?
So it's interesting because we're working on this with the CFP board, Center for Financial Planning, trying to bring more women into the profession. And it's quite difficult. It's more difficult than you would actually think because I think we're what, 23.9% of the profession. So just not even 24. And we're bringing more women in, but the denominator of men is not going down because men are not retiring. So we're not getting that number up, even though we've brought a lot of women in. And the other issue is we can go back all the way to high school and middle school. I also am working with Rock the Street Wall Street, which is a nonprofit that tries to educate women about the profession and also about financial literacy. And they bring in the women and also their mothers and that like their family into the conversation. But what's so interesting is in about 12 years old, and sometimes even earlier, women start to lose confidence. And the teachers who are teaching math start to focus on the men, and women are just like, oh, math is for boys. And so that's the whole STEM thing, which is like a huge. And then I also did something with the CFP board where we went to the Girl Scout National Convention. We had a huge booth. We probably talked to 3,000 girls from age probably 5 to 18 while we were there. Not one of them, except for, okay, one, because their father was a CFP. Nobody knows what a CFP is. Nobody knows it's a profession. Nobody knows it's a thing. Nobody knows they can go to college for it. Everybody knows what a CPA is, an accountant. Everybody knows what an attorney is. Nobody knows what a CFP is. Nobody there did. So we were going through, you can make a lot of money, you can help people, and just opening their eyes. We had future CFP tattoos, future CFP selfie sticks, things that they could take pictures of. So I felt like we planted thousands of seeds, but it is way more difficult than you think because we don't have the name recognition and we're also a new profession. So anyway, it is quite difficult.
Okay, so with that in mind, what are some of the best practices that someone looking to recruit a seasoned female advisor now can be doing?
Okay, I would say, first of all, have a women in wealth division. Okay, or a women in wealth title or women in wealth ambassador, so that they know you are serious about this, putting your money where your mouth is. That's number one. Number two, you have a women's section for women clients on your website. I think that's super important so that a woman who wants to come to your firm can see you are recruiting female clients or you are recruiting female advisors and speaking to them and speaking their language. I think it's really important. I have a quiz in my book. How female friendly is your practice? Take the quiz. See where your blind spots are. You may not even know what you don't know. Have a woman's perspective on how you're communicating in marketing materials to your clients. Because guess what? A lot of times it's very male focused. It's talking about beating the S&P 500 and sports analogies. And I'm sure some women like them, but my clients don't. And my clients like shoes as asset classes. That's my analogy. And they love it. And that went crazy when I wrote that back in the day. And it's still out today. But I have another friend who uses spices, another friend who uses recipes for asset classes comparisons. That's female friendly language. Take the jargon out. Don't talk over a woman's head. Make sure that you are getting the female perspective in every decision that you make within that firm. You know what? If you don't have a woman in senior management or on the staff, you don't even know what you don't know. There's also in my book, there's an implicit bias quiz. It's not mine. It's Harvard Business School's implicit bias quiz. Again, blind spots. You don't know what you don't know. There's a lot of things out there that you just don't even realize that you might be alienating people. So I also hear a lot of times, you might hear this too. I tried to get a woman in the job, but nobody applied. Have you heard that before?
Oh, yeah.
I said, let me see the language. Let me see how you wrote up the job description. You don't know what you don't know. Something you're doing, or you're fishing in the wrong pot. So there's so many things to be done there. It's like a plethora. There's not even one thing. There's like 100 things you could do.
Yeah. And I think the saying, you can't be what you can't see. So a firm is interested in recruiting women, and yet they have no women on staff. And so that in and of itself becomes a self-defeating prophecy, because a woman comes along and says, why would I join a firm that has no women?
Right. And I don't want to be the only one.
Yeah, the desire to recruit women isn't necessarily enough. Let me ask you a follow-up question, though. You mentioned behavioral finance. What does behavioral finance tell you that women clients want more than male clients?
Women clients are relational, not transactional. And that is over and over again. Also, education is so important to them. Women clients take longer, which also men hate. Men hate that. But guess what? They're worth it because they're going to refer to you more. They are going to be with you for a longer amount than the man. They're worth it. But they definitely take a longer time. They want to collaborate with you. They want to get all their questions answered. They want to feel comfortable. They want to feel confident in their decision. They want to ask their friends. They want to ask their neighbors. It's not just them making the decision. They want to make it like a group effort decision.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that's incredibly helpful. And as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking back to that conversation I had with our financial advisors all those years ago. And that's exactly right. They didn't take the time to ask me questions. They were trying to be efficient. They were talking about numbers, and I wasn't interested in numbers. I wanted to feel validated and heard and understood. I wanted them to understand what my vision was for the business I was building and what I wanted it to look like and how ultimately that might translate into numbers. But numbers wasn't what I was asking for, and they just missed the boat. So I think it was really helpful, and thank you.
It's so funny that you say that because another one of the things that I have in the book is talking about life, not money and not numbers and not performance. A woman wants to know, am I going to be okay? Am I going to outlive my money? I talk about the bag lady fear, which more than 50% of women have it. I don't know if you have it or not. I have it. But it's irrational, but it's okay. I have it. It's real. I mean, it's not real, but I have the fear. And so a lot of women have that fear that they're going to be homeless and penniless and living on the streets in New York City. At least that's because I grew up in New York City. So that's what I see. And that's what I remember. And I'm like, oh my God, I never want to be that. So that's addressing those fears and going deeper. And the other thing, which we haven't really discussed, but our industry, wealth management, looks at women in two categories and two categories only: widowed and divorced. Women are an entire life cycle of things, not just widowed and divorced. So that's another chapter in my book because I have like a wheel of life. And I tell my clients, we talk about menopause. I tell male advisors to talk about menopause with their clients. And usually they fall out of their chair. It's a real life event.
Yeah. So, Cary, as we near the end of this really delightful session, so much good stuff in it. When you look at the future of wealth management and your future in wealth management, what excites you the most? What does it look like?
Oh my gosh. I am literally standing here with a funnel with my arms open, waiting to capture all these incredible women clients. I'm here waiting. It's the most exciting time in my history. And that's the other thing is why I couldn't walk away. I couldn't walk away. I said, I can't leave before the great wealth transfer. I've been waiting for this my whole career. I want to be there. I want to be part of it. I want to be leading it. I want to be charging it. I want to be talking about it. So it's the most exciting thing. And it's literally around the corner. So I cannot wait. I literally cannot wait.
Yeah. I sense your passion and authenticity, and I imagine that's what your clients sense in you as well, which is really wonderful. Let's wrap up. One last question that I ask everyone. Our listeners are women and men. They are young, next generation folks. They are wannabe advisors. They are incredibly successful advisors, people that are practicing in the traditional space as employee advisors, managing multi-billion-dollar businesses. They are already independent business owners. They work for firms. They are quasi-independent and everything in between. What is one key piece of advice you'd give our listeners in general?
So I would say, and again, I'm talking about my female clients and the future of wealth management. So the name of the name of my book was going to be Compel Her, Don't Sell Her. And that's what I want to leave you with. Compel her, don't sell her. She does
Yeah.
not want to be sold. You need to show her why this is the best thing in the world for her and give her all the reasons why you are on her side and you are there to help her make the best decisions in her life. So you need to compel her with all the smart reasons why. Do never sell her.
I love it. What a wonderful last piece of advice. It has been delightful. I love so much of what you shared. Thank you for sharing with such passion and authenticity. Thank you for what you bring to the industry for not only women, but anybody who wants to work with a woman. And I'm excited to see what the future holds for you.
Thank you so much.
As a financial advisor, you hold yourself to the highest standards of integrity, honesty, and credibility. You are successful because you take your professional responsibilities seriously and are dedicated to your clients. But are you living your best business life? Are your goals aligned with your firm's, or could a better option exist? Should I Stay or Should I Go is a book written with you in mind. It's a self-guided journey that walks you through the key steps that we take with our advisor clients. This strategic thought process and roadmap to professional self-discovery is designed to help you ask the right questions and think critically and objectively, whether you're considering change or not. Learn how to get your copy at diamond-consultants.com/thebook.